Hi, I'm Michael Hardigan of Oneskyastrology, and I get asked a lot, do I believe in free will? Or do I believe in fate? And I want to take a look at that question and just answer it as best I can in a short video. I think it's a false dichotomy, and I tell people that I do believe in free will, although I also believe in fate. And I've had experiences in my life where I've definitely had choice in my hands. I've had time to consider and contemplate, and out of my own inner, volition, set my course in motion. Having 2 or 3 or 4 roads to look down and decide which one I want to take. It's as free a will as free gets. And at the same time, as an astrologer, I study the patterns of the oceanic vibrations of the solar system and the cosmos, the galaxy and the universe, and how those affect everyone's lives. So like everyone else, I've been in situations where my hand was forced, where I didn't really have a lot of freedom, but circumstances came to bear on the situation in a heavy way. And I felt that, I had no choice in some matters. So the way I see it personally, and there's no consensus on this question, amongst astrologers, amongst philosophers, amongst anybody. So the opinions that I express are just my opinions, man. But I see them as running 2 parallel tracks. On the one hand, you have free will, or, human will. And on the other hand, you have, fate, or the forces of destiny, events that are determined, they've already been set into motion. I see human experience as running a sort of sine wave in between those 2 extremes of freedom and fate. And at times, we'll definitely have choices to make, and we'll have, again, everything that goes into what would define a situation as being free. Time to contemplate, time to consider, that definitive action arising out of our own inner volition, and everything that could possibly fit the description, the definition of freedom. At times we'll have that, and at other times in our lives, that pendulum will swing to the side of that sine function that really describes a situation where our hands are forced, where things are out of our control, where the bigger picture is coming to bear on our situation in a way that is just out of the realm of our ability to influence or manipulate. But again, I see them as 2 parallel tracks that are both operating simultaneously. So I don't think that it's a question of free will versus fate. I think that's a false dichotomy, and I think that these are both constants in our world, and you can prove them both by experiment. You can prove them both by experience. Beyond that way of thinking about it, you can take a sort of higher echelon view, a sort of bird's eye view, if you will, and say that from a non-dual point of view, which is really the point of view of astrology, that things are happening in a sympathetic way, the planets and stars aren't the cause of behavior, but we do see things happening from the mesoscale to the macro scale in a sympathetic way. You see relationships across scale that imply a connectedness, even a non-duality. And from the point of view of non-duality, it's not about whether we're in charge as people or whether the mechanism of the universe or God is in charge. The mystics of the world have always said that we're not separate from God. And I think that as you approach that realization that, there really is a non-dual, non-separation, a kind of unity, the whole question of whether you're in charge or fate's in charge just dissolves into ridiculousness. Not to belittle the argument, not to belittle the conversation, because it's as old as maybe, language, as old as philosophy and astrology themselves, easily. I believe in fate. I believe in free will. I believe that there's no easy answer to life. No, base philosophy that's going to explain everything. And it might seem paradoxical, but I encourage you to consider it. And I offer this little video in hopes that it catalyzes some consideration and contemplation. And if you're a person that believes in fate and thinks that even free will is just part of a causal mechanism, that we just have the illusion of free will, I encourage you to lean in and apply that will, because maybe free will is a misnomer, because if there's multiple factors, multiple functions of experience going on at once, maybe it's limited in its freedom. But I've seen people make a lot of personal steps towards growth, towards wholeness, towards completion when they take on a proactive approach and pick up and carry that torch of a free will and personal responsibility. And with that, I'd like to close this up and say thank you, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you soon.